The Unseen Gift, exploring the mystery of grace in Christianity. Have you ever felt a warmth in your heart that you couldn't explain? A gentle reassurance in the midst of your struggles, an unearned kindness that seemed to come from beyond yourself? In the quiet moments between our doubts and our hopes, many of us have wondered, is there something greater at work, lifting me when I fall? For countless Christians around the world, the answer to this mystery is found in a single radiant word: grace. But what is grace in Christianity? Is it just forgiveness or something deeper? An invisible thread that connects us to the divine. Today, we embark on a journey to uncover the heart of grace, exploring its meaning, its mystery, and its transformative power. The heart of grace, a gift beyond earning. To begin to understand grace in Christianity, we must set aside our usual ideas of earning and deserving. In daily life, almost everything is transactional. We work for our wages, we earn trust, we strive for approval. But grace breaks all these rules. In its purest form, grace is a gift, unmerited, unearned, and freely given. The very word grace comes from the Latin gratia, meaning favor or kindness. In the New Testament, the Greek word charis is used, signifying a favor bestowed without expectation of return. Christianity teaches that grace is God's loving kindness poured out on humanity, not because of anything we have done, but because of who God is. It is love that seeks us out when we least deserve it, forgiveness that embraces us when we have wandered far, and strength that lifts us when we are weak. Grace is the heartbeat of the Christian faith, the answer to the question, how can I, imperfect as I am, draw near to the holy? Grace in the story of Scripture. The Bible is a tapestry woven with threads of grace. From the opening chapters of Genesis, where God clothes Adam and Eve in their shame, to the closing vision of Revelation, where all tears are wiped away, grace flows through every page. In the Old Testament, God's grace is often seen in acts of unexpected mercy, rescuing Israel from bondage, forgiving the failures of prophets and kings, and promising restoration after exile. But it is in the life and teachings of Jesus Christ that grace shines brightest. Jesus tells stories of lost sons welcomed home, debtors forgiven beyond measure, and outcasts invited to the table. He heals, feeds, and loves those whom society has forgotten. Ultimately, Christians believe Jesus' death and resurrection are the supreme expression of grace, God entering into human suffering, bearing the weight of our brokenness, and opening the way to new life. The Apostle Paul, whose letters form much of the New Testament, returns again and again to the wonder of grace. He writes, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and this is not from yourselves, it is the gift of God." Ephesians chapter 2:8. For Paul, grace is not just an idea. It is a living reality that transforms lives. The threefold mystery, types of grace. As Christians have reflected on grace, they have come to understand it in different forms, each revealing a dimension of God's love. First is prevenient grace, a grace that goes before us. Even before we are aware of God, prevenient grace is at work, stirring our hearts, awakening longing, preparing us to receive the gift of faith. It is the whisper in the night, the gentle nudge that draws us toward the light. Second is justifying grace, the grace that forgives and heals. When a person turns to God, trusting in the love shown through Christ, justifying grace washes away guilt and shame. It is the moment of reconciliation, the embrace of the prodigal child returning home. Third is sanctifying grace, a grace that shapes and transforms us over time. The Christian journey is not just a single moment of forgiveness, but a lifelong path of growth. Sanctifying grace is the Spirit working within, molding us into people of love, compassion, and courage. These forms of grace are not stages to be achieved, but gifts to be received, each one echoing the generosity of God, grace and human freedom. One of the most profound mysteries of grace is how it interacts with our freedom. If grace is a gift, does that mean we are passive recipients with no role to play? Or is there a dance, a partnership between divine love and human response? Christian tradition teaches that grace never forces itself upon us. It invites, persuades, and woos, but it does not coerce. Our response, whether of trust, surrender, or resistance, matters deeply. In the words of the poet George Herbert, "Love bade me welcome, yet my soul drew back." Grace opens the door, but we must choose to enter. Some branches of Christianity, like Calvinism, emphasize the sovereignty of God's grace, believing that it is irresistible and unfailing for those God chooses. Others, like Methodism and much of Catholicism, highlight human cooperation with grace, the ongoing yes that allows transformation to unfold. Yet all agree grace is not an excuse for complacency or a license to continue in selfishness. Rather, it is the power that frees us from the chains of fear and shame, enabling us to live as we were created to be. The fruits of grace, how grace changes lives. What happens when grace takes root in the human heart? The results are nothing short of miraculous. Grace births gratitude, humility, and compassion. Those who know themselves forgiven are quick to forgive others. Those who have received mercy become beacons of mercy in a fractured world. Throughout history, countless men and women have testified to the power of grace. St. Augustine, once a restless seeker, found his life transformed by the embrace of God's love. John Newton, a former slave trader, was so overwhelmed by grace that he penned the hymn Amazing Grace, a song still sung by millions today. Grace also inspires acts of justice and service. Having tasted the unearned kindness of God, Christians are called to extend that same kindness to the poor, the lonely, and the oppressed. Grace, properly understood, is not just a comfort for the soul, but a summons to action, a river that flows outward, transforming both giver and receiver. Grace in practice, living the mystery. If grace is God's gift, how can we live in its light? The Christian tradition offers many practices to nurture an awareness of grace. Prayer is the first and deepest, opening our hearts to receive, rather than striving to achieve. The sacraments, such as baptism and communion, are outward signs of inward grace, reminding believers of God's ongoing presence. Confession, both private and communal, is another doorway to grace. In acknowledging our failures, we make room for forgiveness to enter. Acts of kindness, generosity, and hospitality are ways to become channels of grace to others. But perhaps the most important practice is simply to remember that we are loved beyond measure, not because of what we have done, but because of who God is. In times of doubt and despair, to whisper, "Your grace is enough," is itself an act of faith. Grace in the scandal of forgiveness. Grace is beautiful, but it's also scandalous. It offends our sense of justice, our longing for control. How can God forgive the undeserving? How can love be given without condition? The parables of Jesus are full of this unsettling grace. The landowner who pays latecomers the same as early risers. The father who welcomes the wayward son with a feast. For those who have been wounded, the promise of grace can be challenging. Forgiveness, both given and received, may seem impossible. Yet in the Christian vision, grace is not denial or cheap comfort. It is costly. A love that bears the wounds of the world, a mercy that calls forth change. To live by grace is to step into a new logic, one that sees beyond our failures to the possibility of redemption. It is to trust that, in the end, love will have the last word. Grace in everyday life, finding the sacred in the ordinary. Grace is not reserved for saints or mystics. It is found in the ordinary moments of our days. A friend's encouragement, a stranger's smile, the beauty of a sunrise after a long night. Christian spirituality invites us to see all of life as gift, to recognize the hand of God in the mundane as well as the miraculous. When we fail, grace meets us with fresh hope. When we succeed, grace reminds us to give thanks. In relationships, in work, in rest, grace weaves its quiet magic, inviting us to live with open hands and open hearts. The poet Gerard Manley Hopkins wrote, "The world is charged with the grandeur of God. To embrace grace is to see the world anew, to live as those who have been surprised by joy. Questions and wonders, the ongoing journey." No definition of grace can ever be complete, for grace is ultimately a mystery, a love that surpasses understanding. Christians continue to wrestle with its meaning, to marvel at its reach, to surrender to its transforming power. Some may wonder, am I truly worthy of grace? The answer, paradoxically, is that grace is not about worthiness. It is about generosity. Others may ask, can grace really change me? The testimony of generations says yes. Grace is the seed that, given time and nurture, grows into the tree of new life. Grace does not promise an easy road. It does not shield us from sorrow or struggle, but it does promise that we are never alone, that every fall can be a new beginning, and that nothing, absolutely nothing, can separate us from the love of God. Embracing the gift. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of grace. Whether you are new to Christian faith or have walked this path for many years, may you be touched by the wonder of a love that knows no limits and a mercy that never ends. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What does grace mean to you? Have you experienced moments of unexpected kindness or forgiveness in your life? Share your stories and reflections in the comments below. We believe that wisdom grows when shared. If you found this exploration inspiring, please like, share, and subscribe to Faith and Life, where together we seek answers to life's deepest questions. Until next time, may grace surprise you in the most ordinary of moments, and may you carry its light into the world.